Good morning and welcome to the Red Ned Show, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I'm your host, Jay Edgar, and I am going to be flying this one solo tonight. I made some reaches tonight to see if I could get a couple of different people sitting up on the other side of the screen, but unfortunately, there was nobody who was available. And let me tell you one thing for sure. There is nothing that reminds you that you are uncomfortable receiving apologies like trying to find a last-minute co-host on the day of your show there. So I've been apologized to by about 30 people, and yeah, it's been a ride, but the news stops for nobody, and we do have to keep going on this one here. I mean, with everything that happened this week, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't give you a show this week. So we're going to keep on going with this one here, and we will see what we've got going on tonight. But before we get into anything else here, we do want to remind everybody to go on over and bookmark freedomscoop.com and go and check out the well, basically it's the construction page right now. We don't have anything out there, but make sure you go and check out my friends, the Freckles and Brit Show, the R-Rated Conservative, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Daily Ignoramus, and the Generational Gap, who will be on later on tonight. So go and check them out. It's going to be a great time, and we are going to be having our 24-hour fundraiser coming up. That's just in a couple weeks now at this point. 12 days away on Saturday, April 17th, midnight to midnight. That is Central Time. And for those of you who were not there for the morning show, I made the announcement at the end of the morning show that we will be having Styx Hexenhammer as the first interview. Bright and early, Saturday morning, 7 a.m. I'll probably be playing some video games up until that point. I'm going to cut it at 6 now. I was going to cut it at 7, but I'm going to need a little bit of time to prepare for Styx coming on. So definitely looking forward to that one there. It is going to be a true honor to get him on, and that was really the only time slot we could get him. I would have loved to have him more on a primetime slot so more people could come in and interact with the guy. But, he doesn't like to work after 2 p.m., and it's 7 hours later in Amsterdam than it is here. So one thing to keep in mind with that, and we definitely look forward to seeing him here. So come on in and hang out with him. That'll be really cool. I think that's going to be a great interview. And we've got a bunch of other interviews going on too. So it's really going to be a great time. And in spite of the fact that Elaine isn't here right now, she is going to be helping out a lot with that too. So it's definitely something that I thought and I was willing to do it for 24 hours for you guys, because the cause of suicide prevention is it's such a huge cause for me. But I'm so glad that I do have a co-host that could come out and help as well. But that's enough about that one there. We got a bunch of stuff to get to today, and hopefully this week we'll actually get to some of the border stuff too, because we've been slacking on that for the last couple of weeks just because the shows have been so packed. But I do hope that we'll take some time and talk about what's going on the border too, because that deserves some attention as well. But I mean, to look at what we've got going on here already, there was not a shooting, there was a car ramming attack in the Capitol over the weekend, right after they had another shooting at a real estate office in California, and immediately on the heels of a Syrian national going on a rampage in Boulder, Colorado. So there's got to be something going on in the water in this country. But we'll talk a bit about the Orange shooting and the Capitol shooting this week and what happened with those. So definitely looking at that. The Chauvin trial is in full swing right now, so we're going to be talking about a lot of what went on there. There have been a lot of witnesses up there. I didn't even look at any of the clips for today, but they've been calling witnesses all day. They've been calling witnesses all week, and it seems like it's been mostly trying to swing the jury away from the facts and get them back into emotion. As of right now, I don't see clear intent, which is required for 2 of the charges, and I don't see a situation where the officer could be held accountable for the 3rd charge of manslaughter because of him following his training. If anything, there would be a criminal case right now against the Minneapolis Police Department, but that's going to be, cause of death is going to play a huge role in that as well. So we'll be talking a lot about that and what's going on with that. Matt Gaetz got in the news this past week because he is apparently being accused of carrying around a 17-year-old teenager and dating her and stooping her, and it's such a fucking mess off this one. And now people are coming out and saying that he was doing a sting to go back after the DOJ. The FBI is involved in that. Nobody knows what's going on with this thing here, but we'll do what we can to break this down. There's an infrastructure plan, and we'll talk about what's in that and what that could possibly mean for the people as well. The border is in full swing. We'll talk a bit about some of the things that are going on with that, and rounding it out, talking about the Georgia election law and the Texas election law that also raised eyebrows with American Airlines. It's going to be all of this and more today over on the Red Net Show. Thanks for tuning in to me without my co-host over on YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Periscope, and Facebook. And hey, we'll be coming up on Odyssey as soon as they're ready to go streaming too. They just announced that they're going to be streaming as well. Going to be looking into some other platforms as well just to see. And we're also on Trovo as well. So go and check us out on any of those platforms. So I thought I had, speaking of which, I thought I had my DLive monitor up here. I guess I don't. Let's get that up here as well so we can see what's going on with that, because we want to see what you guys are doing and if you're donating anything along over there. So definitely looking in over at that. Otherwise, if you can't catch us live, you can catch us on demand over, I keep saying us, but it's just me. You can catch me on demand over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com, or if you'd rather take me on the go, you can take me wherever you take your podcasts. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Looking forward into going into some other platforms as well. I've got an application out to Pandora and iHeartMedia. So anywhere you take your podcast, you can take me and listen back to this program. All right. And with that, I think we've got all the wares peddled at this point. We talked about Freedom Scoop. We talked about the audio platforms. We talked about the video platforms. Let's get into a little bit of the news that we have going on here for the week, a little bit of the smaller stories. First and foremost, coming up out of KTLA 5, a 4.0 magnitude earthquake has hit in Inglewood. So this has been felt as far away as I know people in Santa Clarita. I know some people over by Manhattan Beach. So this was felt pretty well all around the Los Angeles metro area. I know that Britt, Tweets by Britt, friend of the show and one half of the Freckles and Britt show, is safe. She was far enough away that she barely felt it. The kids came in screaming, and she had her husband go and deal with them. So everybody's safe over on that front, so we don't have a whole lot to worry about with that. But yeah, it looks like it was a 4.0 earthquake that shook the city. As of right now, it does not appear that there have been any deaths associated with this, or very, very little for injuries. So it looks like everybody came out good. But yeah, I got up this morning, and that was what was trending, was San Andreas, because of the small earthquake that went along with that fault line. So everybody seems to be okay, and that'll all be good. All right. On the other coast, Florida is in a little bit of hot water right now because they have to declare a state of emergency because a reservoir holding back hundreds of millions of gallons in radioactive wastewater is in the face of imminent collapse. I almost said immediate. This comes to us from The Blaze. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has declared a state of emergency as a reservoir holding back millions of gallons of radioactive wastewater is set for imminent collapse, according to Insider, because that's all this country needs. Not only do they have Florida men, but now they're going to have irradiated, mutated Florida men on top of this. Now, looking into this, it does appear that this is a very, very slightly radioactive dammed up pond, so there's not any real imminent danger to this. The water is practically potable, except for the fact that it is very high in saline content and nitrogen. So the acidity of the water seems to be the bigger trouble than the radioactive waste. But hey, it makes a good headline and it gets you clicking on the thing, doesn't it? So they've got that going on over there. All right. Got one here from Fox Business for you guys.
Good
Pelosi.
time now to bring in Labor
Get rid of the
Secretary
autoplay.
Marty Walsh.
Pelosi opens the door to lifting SALT tax cap and Biden's $2.25 trillion spending bill. So we'll be talking about the spending bill later on in the program, but this was one that came up to me and I was very interested in this morning because this was one of the big sticking points to both of the big coastal elite cities in this country, New York and California. And I'm not just saying like California as a city, but you know, that hit your San Francisco, your Sacramento, your Los Angeles, because usually those places had the option before the new Tax Cuts and Jobs plan of the Trump administration. They had the option to write off their local taxes before they went in and paid their federal taxes, which saved them a bunch of money on their federal taxes. Now, for most of us, it was mostly negligible, and we did wind up saving overall between both the taxes. But your Californians and New Yorkers, because they got hammered so hard in taxes, got absolutely hammered by this bill because they couldn't write it off anymore. Then they had to pay the full amount to both taxes. So that was interesting to see what went on with that. Then Pelosi is fighting tooth and nail to go and get that repealed in this big stimulus bill that's, or not stimulus, but infrastructure bill that's coming up here. All right, I've got one here from the Hill for you guys. DeSantis has issued an executive order banning vaccine passports. This is another one that we talked about this morning. And I actually sat down and I read the full text of the executive order on air this morning because it's definitely one that we've got to look into and see. And I'm on the line with this particular executive order because with this one, it's really hard for me. Now, DeSantis is coming out and saying that his government agencies, his executive agencies, cannot issue any sort of COVID vaccine passports to anybody within their state, virtually nullifying them from going out to other states and participating in any place where the vaccine passport is, because his State Department's not doing that. And I'm fine with that because that's under his purview. But he's also issued another section of the executive order where he talks about nobody being able to enforce a vaccine passport, which is going to, I mean, Disney is going to be all over this one from the start because I'm sure they were chomping at the bit to get that vaccine passport in there, especially with themselves being based in California. But yeah, no business in Florida is allowed to require any sort of vaccine passport. And that is where I get a little bit iffy off of this because it is private property. However, I know that the federal government is sitting back there waiving tax breaks and all sorts of other incentives for these businesses to come up and do their bidding. Because it is the federal government that is definitely interested in doing this. I know New York has their own vaccine passport system, but it is the federal government who's coming up and saying, well, we want everybody to do the vaccine passport because we want everybody to get the vaccine and we don't want anybody to be able to go in and experience normal life if they don't have the vaccine. And having this come from an executive order, I do feel like this tramples on private property rights. However, when the private property is trying to do the bidding of the big government where they can't and kind of do a workaround for the 10th Amendment, that's where I also start to get iffy on that too. So I don't know what the right answer is for this, but it's... I can't even tell you where to begin on the right answer for this one. I tried to rationalize it in both ways, and I couldn't do it. Because I am very adamant about private property rights, but I'm also adamant about the fact that the federal government is trying to use this as a way to get around private property rights. So we will see what happens with that. In other news from the New York Post, New York has opened the Office of Cannabis Management following legalization. So it's not just the fact that they are legalizing it, but they're also going to regulate the ever-loving fuck out of it and probably tax the ever-loving fuck out of it again because, hey, any way we can go out to get money, and I understand why they're doing it because this is going to be a big novelty thing for at least 5 to 6 years. Harold the Happy Fucking Hippie can go out and get his marijuana cigarette and light it up in the middle of the street and blow it in a cop's face, which I actually think that might be assault, so he might not be able to do that, but it's one of those things where he says, hey, look, I can do this. and then he's going to go back out and try to do it. And, the novelty will wear off eventually. And probably by 2025, every third commercial on network TV, if there's still network TV at that time, that's another thing to look into. But every third commercial that you're going to see is going to be about the dangers of cannabis smoke and how much tar it puts in your lungs and how addictive it is and how the cigarette companies are trying to get everybody hooked on it. This is going to follow the exact same path as tobacco did, I promise you, just at a much faster pace because we have the internet to speed everything up. So that's what we're going to have going on with that. Definitely something to see, but hey, they're going to at least try to make a little bit of money off it while they still go. All right, what else do we got going on this morning? Oh, this one. So I've got this video here, and we'll get this up for you guys to see, because a pastor in a church in Calgary, Alberta, decided that he didn't want the police in his church. Let's see what that looked like. Maybe, if that loads up. New computer's coming. It looks like I'm getting a bonus from work, and I'm going to just put that right into the new computer. All right, it's going. Let's get this up.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out. Out. Out of this property, you Nazis. Out. Out. Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out. Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without the warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without the warrant. Do not come back without the warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here. Gestapo is not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. Unbelievable, sick, evil people. Intimidating people in a church during the Passover. You Gestapo, Nazi, communists, fascists. Don't you dare coming back here.
Now, when I first saw this video, I initially actually thought that this was a synagogue, not a church, but I did follow up with this, and yes, this actually is a Christian church. I thought because, A, he cited the Nazi connection to this, and also the fact that he brought up the Passover, because, I mean, I've been Lutheran for my entire life when I do actually go out and practice religion, and I have never once celebrated the Passover in my life. So that actually confused me a little bit, but it does appear that, yes, this is a Christian church out of Calgary, Alberta. The police made a statement saying that they were going into this church in order to make an investigation because there were complaints of no mask wearing, and they still have gathering rules in place for Calgary, Alberta. And yeah, that's how they got greeted off of this, which, I mean, we do need to start pushing back on some of this here because, you know, the vaccine's coming out and people are going out and getting it, and I'm not going to be getting it, but enough people are going out and getting it that there isn't going to need to be a lot of worry about this whole thing anymore, but they're still going to try to push these gathering limits down. That is one of the things that we're going to see, is they're going to continue to try and keep the gathering limits and try to keep the power over the people. So, yeah, absolutely. What a fucking legend this guy is, and you know, more of us need to do some of this as well, especially when it comes to private property. Especially when it comes to private property. The government should have no bearing over, especially over a church on top of that, with the First Amendment in place. So, yeah, good on this dude. All right. So, from PIX11, and I thought you guys would find this one really interesting. This is out of New York State, too, out of New York City on top of it, which means this is completely local for them. This isn't just a guy in Wisconsin talking about how ineffective this woman is. This is from New York. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez among the least effective lawmakers in Congress, per a study. So, according to this article, the Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez D. Twitch was one of the least effective lawmakers, ranking 230th out of 240 Democrat members, a new study found. The Nonpartisan Center for Effective Lawmaking, a joint project by the University of Virginia and Vanderbilt University, assigned legislative effectiveness scores to each member of Congress based on more than a dozen metrics, including the number of bills a lawmaker sponsored and how far each of those bills advanced through the legislative process. The scores are compiled biannually after the conclusion of each Congress. So yeah, that's basically what they looked at, and it looks like she introduced 21 bills during the 116th Congress, which ranged from January 2019 to January of 2021, but none of them made it out of their respective committees, according to the study. So, I mean, she tried. It's one of those things of, well, at least you tried. But nobody picked up on her absolute radicalism or her abject stupidity. And, I mean, she's really good at getting up and doing an Instagram Live and saying, okay, Poppy, this is why we need to do this, because we think of the children and we think of the Green New Deal and we need the jobs, but they need to be government and union jobs. And she could sit there with her fucking Instapot on Instagram. I did not even intend to put those two things together, but she can sit there with both of those things and, you know, make a lot of statement. And one of the worst things about her is, I mean, she's very pandering to the entire country, and I guarantee you she's taking a lot of donations in from across the entire country, but she hasn't done jack shit for her district either. Something else to keep in mind as we go along with it. She hasn't done a goddamn thing for her district. She's made jobs in Texas. She went down to Texas as soon as the freeze went in to try and rally up the troops and get Ted Cruz out and make jobs in Texas. Didn't do a goddamn... She chased jobs out of her district in New York City. So I would actually possibly drop her a little bit lower on that, because not only did she not do anything congressional-wise, but she actively chased jobs out of her district. I think that she actually possibly could be on the 240 mark. So definitely wanted to see with that. All right. Let's keep going with that one. I thought that you guys would find this one interesting. Not that it would ever affect me, because you guys wouldn't put a dislike on my channel, would you? You wouldn't do that. You guys like my program. Hopefully. And I would hope that you would reach out to me and tell me how to improve it, rather than just throwing the thumbs down on me and telling me to fuck myself. But this is coming to us from The Verge. YouTube is experimenting with hiding dislikes to protect creators' well-being. YouTube has announced it's experimenting with hiding dislikes to discourage dislike mobs from deliberately downvoting videos from creators and channels. The experiment is a different implementation than the solutions the company had previously discussed, but it is similar to other attempts platforms like Instagram have taken to nip targeted attacks in the bud. In the current setup, stats for both likes and dislikes are viewable in a creator's individual YouTube Studio page, but only likes will be displayed publicly on a video. In a support article explaining the test, YouTube says that dislikes can negatively impact a creator's well-being and may motivate a targeted campaign of dislikes on a creator's video. Basically, the idea is that seeing a dislike number and watching it go up could be enough motivation to join in and make the number larger. And that... Well, the kids are running around outside. I can hear them. And that, I mean, when we look at something like that as well, it's... What do you think is going to happen with that? It's going to be the big creators, because who's massively getting disliked right now? White House videos, Biden videos, CNN videos, the live coverage of various congressional things, especially when they're left-leaning kind of things coming up out of the government. These are the things that are getting massively disliked. You're not seeing big dislike campaigns coming out onto your just grassroots people. So this goes along with the article that we read all the way back, coming up and running up to the inauguration day, where YouTube came out and said, well, we're just going to ban anybody who says that there was any sort of and I'm not going to say it out loud because we're on YouTube right now, and we all know full well that everything was completely above board, Susan, and Joe Biden is the most popular president who ever lived, and honk, wink, wink. And he would never get a dislike campaign on any one of his videos. But what is interesting about this, and what's interesting about what's going on with this as well, is the creators that are going to be affected, because that's not going to happen on this channel. If I get a dislike campaign, you guys are going to fucking see it. If Styx Hexenhammer gets the dislike campaign, you guys are going to see it. If Matt and Blonde get a dislike campaign, you guys are going to see it. But if CNN gets a big dislike campaign, if Biden ever gives a State of the Union, he's going to get a big dislike campaign on that. This is protecting those same priority creators. This isn't doing anything for the grassroots people like me. This isn't doing anything for any of those people. This is to protect the people who already have the power to turn their comments and live chat off because they can't handle the criticism that's coming in there and flying in there faster than anybody could humanly read. This isn't about grassroots creators. This is about making sure they can come back out and be Netflix 2.0 once again. Which it does seem like that's the direction that they're going. And that's kind of the reason I'm glad that Odyssey has rolled out live streaming. I'm waiting for Live Shoot to come in too, because I kind of want to do that too. As soon as these are available on Restream, I'm going to be on those platforms as well, because, YouTube is a nice place to go. If you want to go out and try to pick away people outside of the right-wing echo chamber, because that's where people are going to go for everything. And the safe priority creators like the King of Random are always going to be over there on YouTube. I don't know how this channel has survived as long as it has, because I have said some pretty horrifying stuff, and I've said some even worse stuff in live chats before. I convinced Robert to say "rabbled" on one of their videos. And I've tried to convince him to say other various anti-Semitic things, but yeah. I have no idea how this channel still exists, but that's what they're doing off of this. So look forward to that coming up in the near future. Let's see, what else do we have here? Major Biden is back again from Kate Bennett over on CNN. Biden's dog Major involved in another biting incident. So it's not enough. Because everybody was so glad because, well, we're going to have dogs back in the White House, and Trump, evil orange Donald Trumpler was the first president to ever not have a dog, which I don't think that's true, but he was the first president in a long time to not have a dog. And it's so horrible. Even though Obama's had a dog, and everybody had a dog, and even evil George W. Bush, even though he's not evil anymore, he had a dog. And Donald Trumpler doesn't have a dog, and how evil is that? Well, this is the second time that a Biden dog has bitten somebody. And I believe they've both been Major both times, too, because that's the other thing I'm trying to figure out is, why is Major back in the White House? Because they sent him back to Delaware after he bit the first time. Now, we're coming out here, and the aide that Major Biden bit wound up having to go to the hospital to go get checked out. Of course, there's nothing wrong and nothing to see here, and he came back out and said there was nothing to see here. But he did have to go back and get checked out. He's acting out. He's biting. He's shitting on the floor. And it is a sight to see off of this one. But, yeah, at that... These dogs have been in the spotlight, shoved in the spotlight. They've got cameras shoved in their face everywhere. Their owner is fucking senile, goes out and tries to grab their tail while he's naked coming out of the fucking shower. How do you think they're going to react? But that's what we have going on with that. All right, what else do we got going on? I've got one here from CNBC. Got vaccinated. Here's why you may want to keep that to yourself. So basically they're coming out and saying that you need to keep your vaccine card. You're not supposed to post your vaccine card on social media, in spite of the fact they're coming out. At first they were coming out and saying, well, it's safe, and look at how great and virtuous I am off of this. But, there was another article in here. Actually, I want to put that up because I'm not going to be doing Surprise Stupidity anymore tonight, so we could probably talk about that as well. Let's move that up over here. I've got nobody to surprise, so we can't do Surprise Stupidity tonight. But yeah, they're coming out and telling you that, if you put your vaccine card up there, that's got your first and last name, and sometimes it's got your address. It's got other information about you. This could be used for identity theft. Yeah, it absolutely could. But also, people are getting very, very artistic. They know what these cards look like. And there is going to be a market, especially if they start making this shit mandatory and having your vaccine passport to go anywhere. You're going to start to get to see a black market for these vaccine cards, which the Daily Wire comes back and reports as well. FBI warns Americans who use fake vaccine passports may be breaking the law. The FBI is pledging to go after people who make or buy fake COVID-19 vaccination record cards. President Biden's administration has been working with major corporations to establish a nationwide vaccine passport, and last month New York rolled out its own vaccine passports, which state residents will need to show in order to get into most sports and entertainment venues. Now the FBI is warning people against using fake vaccine passports. We've all seen friends posting their COVID-19 vaccination cards on social media, wrote Minneapolis branch of the FBI on social media. If you make or buy a fake one to misrepresent your vaccination status, you endanger other people and may also be breaking the law. I hate to tell you this, FBI, but the people who are going to be going to a black market to get a vaccination card know full fucking well that they're breaking the law, just the same way that the people who are going to the black market to get a gun or a Confederate flag, or drugs that you guys have deemed illegal and want to confiscate to use for your own personal pleasure, they also know that all those things are illegal too. Everybody who's engaging in this kind of activity knows it's already illegal. And I'm going to tell you this right now. You should never, ever make a fake vaccination card to get by the passport things. Nobody watching this program should ever do that. You should not. That is something you should never ever do, and you should absolutely never associate with anybody who actually has the template to make these, who may or may not be chatting in this chat. You shouldn't be doing any of that stuff. You should never, ever, ever fake a government document like that. Ever. No, that's terrible. That's bad. You could put other people in danger. You should never do this. I hope everybody knows that you should never do this. But yeah, at this point, they're coming out here because they're trying to keep the fakes from going away. It has nothing to do with, well, there is the identity theft aspect to it. Because some of these people, especially when they have bigger accounts than they know, are putting stuff up there with their first and last name. I mean, you guys don't even know my first name. Not that I would ever have a vaccination card to show anyway, but you guys would never even know what you don't even know what my first name is. I'm that concerned about identity theft, and these other people are just waving it around like it's no big fucking deal. All right, I got just a couple more here. Just want to double check the itinerary here before we get into it. Yep, I just got a couple more here. Then we'll get into the big news of the week. This I found fucking hilarious, not just because of who is involved with this, but I actually know which school that they're trying to rename. From my time living in Kenosha, Waukegan is very close to Kenosha. It's like 3 towns away from Kenosha across the Illinois border. 4 towns if you count Pleasant Prairie. So I know this school. I know people who've gone to this school. And this is hilarious. So the Blaze reports activist protests renaming Chicago school after Barack Obama, calling former president another oppressor. So this is Roosevelt School in Waukegan, Illinois. Former President Barack Obama and his wife, the former First Lady Michelle Obama, have been floated as the possible new namesakes of a school in their native Chicago. This is actually probably about 30 to 40 miles away from Chicago proper. But not everyone is on board with the idea, and several activists even staged protests where they claimed the former president is just another oppressor. The Waukegan Board of Education is considering renaming a few of their schools due to the current namesake's ties to slavery, WLS-TV reported. One committee floated the idea of renaming Thomas Jefferson Middle School. I'm sorry, it's not Roosevelt, it's Jefferson. That's my fault. Apologize. Currently named after the former president and founding father of America who owned slaves after the Obamas. According to Fox News, that led to a protest outside the school board meeting on Tuesday. And this was their reasoning. From the time Barack Obama became president in 2017 until when he left, he today is still the highest ranking president with deportations in our nation, demonstrator Julia Contreras declared. We feel that Barack Obama did disservice to us. He denied us, and he didn't stop the deportations the way he promised. No, he actually did quite a bit more than Trump did. Mostly because people weren't coming under Trump. They were coming under Obama, and they're coming under Biden. But they were not coming under Trump. And he wasn't having them go out and get hunted down in the country the same way that, well, the Obamas did, because they were bringing so many in. So yeah, I mean, and this is absolutely hilarious. When you are not left enough for Waukegan, Illinois, that is fucking funny to me. That is funny. I like that. But speaking of my side of the border, from the Associated Press, and I want to remind you guys, and I didn't do the solo video yet, but I still want to sit down and do a solo video to talk about this. I spent most of my day finishing up the notes for this show and then going back and trying to find a co-host at the last minute. But Wisconsin has struck down Governor Evers' mask mandate as of, what the hell day was that? Thursday? Last week Thursday? What was the 31st? Last week Wednesday, I'm sorry. As of last week Wednesday, we have no more mask mandate in this state. Now, the Democrats of the state are scrambling to try and make sure that they still have mask mandates in place, which is fine. And, I mean, that's not going to change a lot of things because your private businesses are still doing it. Like, I can't go to the major chain grocery stores in Janesville without doing that because they've got private property mandates on it. The governor's order doesn't exist anymore, but they still have private property mandates on that, which that's going to be a big factor in all this. And like I said, because I'm going to make the solo video on it, and I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail about this, but what we're going to see now is the businesses that are adamant about it are going to keep the mask mandate up on their own private property. The other ones are going to take it down. And people are going to actually probably flood to the ones that don't have the mandate on them. I know because people were looking at, before there were statewide and nationwide mandates on anything, people were boycotting Costco. Even here, before there was a state mandate, people were boycotting Menards, which is a local company. People weren't going to the big chain grocery stores. They were going to small-time grocery stores because they didn't have to go out and buy a new piece of cloth, a piece of dirty cloth that you carry around in your pocket. I just went to the optometrist today, and they needed me to have one on, which is surprising in this small town because nobody else in this small town requires it. Hell, even the big corporate Quick Trip, I walked in there the other day without it on, and nobody else had one on either. So what you're going to start to see is the cities are still having it. Like City of Milwaukee, there's still one, I guarantee. I haven't gone to the City of Milwaukee, but City of Milwaukee still has it in place, I guarantee you. City of Madison, I know still has it. Dane County still has it, but Rock County doesn't have one. City of Janesville, I think, actually still has a city ordinance. So, but the statewide thing is down, and now it's on the people to pick the winners and losers and not the government. All right. And I have got two more here. Now, this one here, this is just a tweet that's out here, but I want to talk about the contents of this tweet. So, Daniel Horowitz tweeted out, New York Senate just passed concentration camp bill. And we actually read pretty well in depth to this bill on Contemporary. I'm going to paraphrase it for the sake of this program because we do have to keep it moving along. But this is New York State Assembly Bill A416. And it relates to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases that are potentially dangerous to the public health. That's the summary. But to read into this, and like I said, we read into this bill over on the Contemporary side, and this is draconian level shit. This is basically, if we're in the case of another pandemic where it's highly communicable and highly deadly, as they try to convince us that this one is, New York State government retains the ability to remove the people who have been infected away from their homes. Now, we didn't even see this level of shit in China, who is draconian as hell. Yes, they were welding people into their homes, and they were dying of starvation in their homes, but they were not taking people outside the city and putting them in camps. Does anybody see where this leads? Because this is not a direction that I want to go down. This is not the direction that I want to see off of this. This is actually something that frightens the shit out of me off of this. And the text is in the bill. And I mean, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. They are actually talking about going through and removing people from their homes and putting them in special camps outside of the city That is New York State Assembly Bill A416. I will put that in the Discord and the Gilded for you guys if you want to go read it for yourself. If you want to tell me I'm full of shit because of this bill, I will say that you have to read it first, and then I will accept if you want to tell me that I'm full of shit. But I can't read this another way and see anything else. So you guys should definitely take a look at this one. And we'll keep that up on the chart so I remember to put it in both of those platforms for you guys here. And the last one, this is just breaking this morning. In fact, this was breaking so late this morning that I didn't get this on Contemporary. I found this immediately after I got off of here. But Twitter has confirmed that it has suspended Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's account in error, which I got this from a Tim Pool tweet who pointed out that the errors seem to go only in one direction for some odd reason. Twitter confirmed Monday that it suspended Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's account in error because she tweeted on Easter, "He has risen, the second time the social media giant has sidelined the Georgia Republican in a month." Greene announced that she was back online in a post. "Twitter suspended me again by mistake yesterday after I tweeted, 'He has risen.' Everyone knows that's a lie, and it was no mistake," she wrote on Twitter. In a statement, Twitter insisted that it happened in error. "We use a combination of technology and human review to enforce the Twitter rules across the service. In this case, our automated system took enforcement action on the account. Referenced in error, this action has been reversed, and access to the account has been reinstated," the statement said, which, to me, this is a little bit of flying in the face of the Supreme Court decision, because remember, they said that they couldn't suspend official accounts, especially from government officials, because the constituents had a constitutional right to have access to the tweets that were put out by these accounts, both historically and in current times, in contemporary times. So I think they're breaking the law when they do this. If I had to look at this, and which also in perpetuity, I also think that the law is being broken with the Trump account being suspended, but there's really nothing you can do at that point off of this. But it is funny because they accidentally suspended Trump's account before they finally gave him the major axe after the January 6th selfie fest. Before they even did that, I think they nabbed him a couple different times, didn't they? A couple different times they came in and the staffer, it was either an accident that he got suspended, or a staffer came out on her last day, and I believe was one of the stories, where she came out and just said, "Fuck this, I'm suspending the Trump account." And then they restored it all back to functionality once again. But yes, these mistakes do happen to go in one direction all the time. So I don't know. I don't know how much of this is a mistake. But she is back up and running. And you can go and check out her inane tweets because she can't really do anything else at this point. I mean, what do? You're not on committees anymore. They're actually trying to strip the ability of her to force a hard vote in the House. But she's got nothing to do but sit back and tweet. And tell the people on the floor what our constituents think. So that's what we see going on with that. All right, let's see what you guys are saying, and then we'll get into the big news of the week. Let's have a look here. Matthew Hammond, Elaine is late. No, Elaine actually had something go on at home, so she's not going to be able to be in today. Which is a shame because, especially with the Capitol attack, I really wanted to have that discussion with her. And these Georgia bills, because she was I know because we were tweeting back and forth about it, she was definitely looking forward to having the conversation about this. So it is kind of a lame thing, but yeah, it was last minute too, so I've got no idea. Ron Helton is here with his weird Trovo stickers. Mosquitoes and things with tongues and speaking in tongues maybe. Matthew Hammond says, "What about the drug deal in his car?" Well, yeah, he probably got shook up too, but I'm sure the shock absorbers absorb most of it. Those homeless people cars actually usually have really good shocks, I'm guessing. Nephilim Ninja of Nibiru says, "Ed, not so red show." Yeah, no. Yeah, I reached out to a lot of really cool people. I think a couple of people you guys would have really, really liked. So, yeah, but I promise right off the top, I promised that we would have a show at 5:30. Unless she was actually late, and then we would delay the show. But I promised we would have a show every Monday night. The news stops for nobody, so I'm going to be here. If I'm not here on a Monday night, send help because I'm dead. I made that promise to you guys. So we will be here no matter what. Spartan says, no Elaine, no peace, spamming riots in the chat. Well, spam it up because that actually helps the algorithm. So if you want to go back and spam the chat, then that'll actually help me out. You may think you're trying to hurt me, but you're really helping me. And do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? Giles Corey says, there will still be a rebellion. Welcome in, Giles Corey. Thank you. Spartan says, Polish power, get out the pigs. Get out! Get out! I tell you, get out! This is exactly how you talk to cops. Matthew Hammond, out! Get out! Polish people would know. Exorcism of the Tyranny, Nephilim Ninja says, that is a true anti-fascist. Polish Catholic. Yeah, that's one of the things. And yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's so strange to me that they're celebrating the Passover. But once again, I'm Lutheran, so I mean, the Passover has never been celebrated by me and my family. I have no idea anything. Well, I know what Passover is, obviously, and I know where its relation is in the story of the Passion. And of course, I've read the Old Testament, so I know what it means. But it's never been something that's been celebrated around me. So other than that, I have no idea. Ron Helton is back over on Trova, says FDA-approved drugs have killed millions of people. Do you feel lucky now to take the jab? Well, I have to go. Going to my nephew's house. Catch you in the morning. Ron Helton's lying. He's going to get his COVID vaccination. Make sure you remind him of that in the morning if you guys are here. Giles Corey says she's danced on rooftops. No one really likes anything government-related. Most rational people just tune it out. Yeah, and I've noticed that we've seen numbers drop too ever since after the election. Ever since after the Trump bump, my numbers they've actually been steadily increasing, but that's been an Elaine bump too because she's off the campaign trail and she's here every week and she's doing some marketing as well. So my numbers have gone up, but like the viewing hours have gone down. It's just the people who are really, really into politics have been here because that is the basis of the show. I mark this as a news show, but that's really the basis of what we're doing is politics and how this all affects. Spartan says, Laser Live, another platform coming soon. Yep, I'm looking forward to that one. I know you've mentioned that before, so absolutely look into that one. If you guys don't have, and even if I don't get onto Laser Live right away, I will definitely get on there enough to reserve the name because I'm going to start marketing as J. Edgar 101. I've actually got to reach out to a woman in South Africa to see if I can free it up for Twitter. I know who she is. I actually found her on Facebook too, so I'm going to reach out and see if she'll give up her Twitter password. She hasn't tweeted since 2013, so I mean, it's not like she's really active on the platform. Maybe toss her a couple of South African bucks to turn it over, but that's, and I don't do Ed's blog anymore either. I rarely write in my blog. So the Ed's blog Twitter thing doesn't really work anymore. So I'm going to try and rebrand everything out to that new address at some point. Spartan says, you survived because you don't have 10,000 live views on YouTube. Well, you guys have word of mouth. You can change that. Kyle says, George W. wasn't evil. He was so dumb. No, George W. was fucking evil. He played the dumb thing on TV so everybody would get pissed at Dick Cheney. But no, George W. Bush was absolutely an evil monster. And yeah. Spartan says, you're not saying pro-white stuff like Nick Fuentes. No, that I'm not. Because I am not a racist person. I understand there are differences between people, but everybody has the ability to live and be free and be happy. So, Giles Corey says, don't post the first wave vaccine trial card. And then he says, sarcasm alert. Yeah, never, ever, ever make a counterfeit or black market vaccine card. Never, ever, ever do that. Spartan says, I don't know the full name of our future president. Well, thank you, Spartan. Hopefully, like I said, 2,000 YouTube subscribers by the beginning of 2022, and I'll run for president. I don't know how well I'll do, because I don't have all the big fucking corporate money backing me, but I'll run. I'll give it a try. Giles Corey says New York. First he says the full name of the next president is Giant Meteor. Then he says New York City is killing taxpayers. Yeah, they are. Spartan says zombies are people. Let them stay in New York. They also put fact checking under Trump tweets. Yes, every single one. And Giles Corey will get the last word before we circle back. Like Jen Psaki. Dissolve New York City's charter and lock down Manhattan. That's apparently what they want. Well, absolutely. Let me go and get a couple of my friends out of there first. But yeah, absolutely. If they want to lock down Manhattan, then lock down Manhattan. All right, let's talk about the pseudo-terrorist attacks that we saw last week. I don't really want to say terrorist attack, especially because, well, this is YouTube, and even if they're not showing as particular viewers, they're watching. And if I try to come out and say that this was terrorism, then they might shut me down. But in the wake of Atlanta, which I think they've given up on because they can't try to pin this on anti-Asian hate as much as they're trying to, I think they've given up on that fucking leash. And in the wake of a crazy fucking Syrian dude going in and on a shooting rampage in Boulder, Colorado. Oh, I forgot. That didn't happen either. Now we have two more coming up here. So I want to start with this one up out of Orange. From NBC of Palm Springs. Multiple victims found at the scene of a deadly shooting in Orange, California, police say. So this was Wednesday night. About 5:30 p.m., the officers arrived to a call of shots fired in the area of 202 West Lincoln. Lieutenant Jennifer Amat said an officer-involved shooting occurred and the suspect was transported to the hospital. The department did not give any other information at the time about the suspect or the four victims. So, I mean, this was a big one too, and it was almost immediately came out. And I didn't grab the article out of the notes. Let me see if I can grab the article in the show notes here to get a better picture of what actually happened with this. I know I got more stuff on the Capitol driving one, but I do want to make sure I get this one accurate, so bear with me for just a moment. We'll do a little bit of on-air production, because what would this show be without on-air production? Yep, this one right here. Let me pop this one open. Man accused in mass shooting in Orange charged in assault case 6 years ago. So this is from NBC4, a different NBC affiliate off of this, and pointing out the fact that Amina Dab Gonzalez Gaxiola faced 4 misdemeanor charges of child abuse and endangerment, assault with a deadly weapon other than a gun, dissuading a witness, battery for the incident that occurred in March 31st of 2015. So this is the guy, and he went in. What he did with this, and this was absolutely horrifying, because this wasn't a crime of passion. I know right now they're trying to throw the Chauvin thing up as this was an absolutely premeditated thing, and Chauvin got up and he was buttoning up his shirt and throwing his badge on and saying, "Oh, that George Floyd. I'm going to go kill a George Floyd. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill him. I know George Floyd is out there and I'm going to hunt him down." That's what they're trying to pin on Derek Chauvin right now. But this guy went into a gated office park on Wednesday night and locked both of the gates in the gated office park before going into a real estate area and going on a rampage, killing 4, including a child who died in his mother's arms. And it has been confirmed, the relationship has not been confirmed yet at this point, but it has been confirmed that he knew the victims. Like, this wasn't a random thing. He went in there to cause carnage. He went in there to make sure that nobody could go back and intervene right away by locking the gates. And he knew everybody most of the people that were involved. I don't know if he knew the 9-year-old or not, but he knew most everybody who was involved with this one, which to me there is no death penalty in California. But if I was in charge of California, I would make an exception for this one, because this guy went in with an agenda. And it was horrifying off this. And, this popped up. This came up on the news right away on Thursday morning. And then almost immediately it was gone. As soon as we saw Gonzalez Gaxiola, it was gone. And we haven't heard about much anything else about this. The guy got picked up. He got shot by the officers. He came out alive. But I got a feeling we're not going to be hearing a whole lot more about this one anymore. But the other big one that happened this week, on Friday, Let me get the right one. Also an NBC affiliate talking about this one. The U.S. Capitol Police officer dies after attacker rammed a car into a checkpoint. Suspect is also dead. So, about mid-afternoon on Friday, I started seeing the tweets come off the fact that there was a helicopter touching down, the National Guard was being activated, and some police officers were, there were reports of shots fired in the vicinity of the Capitol building. There was reports of a car being rammed into the gates, and reports of shots fired. And we saw a bunch of other different videos that came along with this as well. Let's grab this one here. This is the National Guard who is rushing to get into place with this. Oops. Oh, that one reloaded. So let me get that one set up here quick. I don't know why that's considered an offensive one, but apparently Twitter considers that one to be offensive. So you actually have to sign and click through if you're not signed in, which I don't know of any way to stay signed in over on OBS Studio where we're watching this through. But let's have a look at the guard going in, rushing in to try and get to this situation. Yeah, and that's pretty much just a loop of them going back and forth off of that, which, you'd think that if there was a major problem, there would be going with a little bit more gusto from this one than what we're seeing off that, but, such is the operation. So, let's see what NBC has to say about this one. A U.S. Capitol Police officer was killed and another injured after a man drove a car into a security barricade at the Capitol complex on Friday, Acting Chief Yoganda Pittman said. The driver was shot after jumping out of a car with a knife and failing to respond to verbal commands and lunging at the officers, Pittman said. The suspect was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead a short time later. 4 senior law enforcement officials briefed on the investigation identified the suspect as a 25-year-old man from Indiana, Noah Green. Well, there were some other problems with this, and Crapplefrats over on Twitter actually made the perfect point about this one here. He says, breaking. A car has crashed into the barrier at the U.S. Capitol. Media is attempting to determine the demographics of the occupants of the vehicle to determine whether this was A, a mostly peaceful protest, or B, domestic terrorism. And, well, very shortly after that, we got our answer for this one. And Ian Miles Chong actually pointed this one out. Let's get that one up here for you guys.
In the last hour here, critical situation as they were taking. That could have been the suspect right there. That could have been the suspect there that they were taken away, because that suspect was shot. But this is viewer discretion.
And we're going to freeze it right there because you can definitely take a look at the screen, and if you're listening back on the audio platform, you're not going to be able to see it. But, it's pretty clear as day that the gentleman that is pictured in this video still right here is not a white man. But to go along with this, and this kind of goes into the way that the media is out going to try and portray this. Let me get this back up off the screen here. It goes back to the NBC article that I was reading here just before because, I counted on the morning show this morning. It was 10 paragraphs down. Now, the majority of this article is in remembrance of Billy Evans, the officer that was killed in the line of duty for this, because, all cops are bastards unless they're cops that the Democrats control or the Congress controls, or however you want to take that one. Billy Evans lost his life off of this. And then you go 10 paragraphs down in this particular article, which is long after most people have stopped reading, especially in today's 5-second headline culture, which is, it's part of the reason that I do contemporary the way that I do, because we do read into depths into some of these articles. Yes, I take it out of the headlines, but we do break down some of that as well. And also part of the reason that we do the Red Ned Show every Monday night, because then it'll take some time And we can break some of this stuff down here. But if you go down, first off, Robert Conti, acting chief of the D.C. Metropolitan Police, said that the department would take over the investigation. It does not appear to be terrorism related, Conti said. Law enforcement sources said Green recently lived in Virginia, and postings on social media, he let his friends and family know that the past few years have been tough and the past few months tougher. I'm currently now unemployed after I left my job partly due to afflictions, but ultimately in search of a spiritual journey, he wrote on a now deleted Facebook page. And this is what they don't want you to know off this. First off, yes, the demographics come into play off this, but Green's page featured several recent postings that reference the teachings of the Nation of Islam, a black separatist movement that does not follow the traditional teachings of Islam, and its leader, Louis Farrakhan. Nation of Islam has been classified as a designated hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center because of what the SPLC calls deeply racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-LGBT rhetoric of its leaders. And there were a lot of other things that went along with this as well. I mean, you look at this. This guy's Facebook is immediately scrubbed. It still exists, I promise you, and they're looking through it. They're scrubbing back through this as far as they can. Because right now, they can't blame the evil white man. You know, if this had been a white Trump supporter, or even a white Christian, first paragraph, white Christian crashes car into Capitol Police. Capitol Police officers jump to action. They kill the evil white MAGA person. But now, here we are, 10 paragraphs down. Oh, by the way, this guy was a part of the black separatist movement. It's not really that important. Terrorism wasn't involved. They can't blame the gun because he used a knife. And that was one of the other things, too, because the initial reporting said shots fired. Well, it appears that the shots that were fired were only from a cop's gun. They can't do the white cop shooting an unarmed black man because even though he was only armed with a knife, that would implicate the Capitol Police, who are supposed to be sainted right now and getting medals from Congress. So right now, they're scrubbing through this guy's Facebook to try and see if they can find something anti-Semitic from him. So they can go blame this on the hatred of the religion and evil anti-Semitism and not the Islam or the black separatism or anything else like that. So, yeah, that's what they're looking for off of this one. And that's a big part of the reason that you're not seeing any of this anymore. And yeah, by Saturday, the next thing we're talking about is Jill Biden's atrocious outfit as she was getting up off Air Force Two. So, there we are. And, of course, F's in the chat for the family of Billy Evans. He did go up and, he was just trying to provide for a family. He was an 18-year veteran of the force. Whether or not he was out there busting people for small potato stuff or not, that's between you guys and the force. But, yeah. He put his life out there to try and protect people. Whether they were good people or not, he put his life out there to protect them. So, I can't argue against him for that. All right, we got to talk about the Chauvin trial, but I got to load up a couple articles about this. And I got to see what you guys are saying as well. So, let me get back up into that, and then we'll pull some live chat up here. Let me get a couple of these queued up for you guys. Because that was a major part of this week, and we're going to talk a lot about that. I try to get Seawall on here because I know that he is chomping at the bit to talk about this Chauvin trial and everything that goes along with it. That is one of his big pet projects, is trying to see where this goes, and he believes that the police officer did nothing wrong. So I thought it would be really interesting to have the discussion with him, or even with Elaine, who is mostly against the police at this point because she's mostly against the laws that they go out to try and enforce. This would have been an interesting conversation with just about anybody I could have had on the list for tonight. But I'm going to have it with you guys because I still like you guys. All right, that's what we're going to do with this. We're going to stop it there. Let's see what you guys are saying for this. Oh, Stephen Ignoramus is here. Yeah, he was one of them on the list of people that could have come in and sat, but he was out of the house at the time and wasn't going to get back in time for the show. And I thought about starting late, but I don't want to interrupt against fill in the gap because We all got to go watch the Generational Gap, guys, too. All right, where are we leaving off for this? Where did I leave off? All right, there we go. Spartan. Spartan says the media is pushing that whites are killing Asians and blacks, which is not true when you actually look at it. Yeah, I mean, if there was such a major amount of Asian hate, with the attention that kid in Atlanta got, you'd think that we'd be hearing about this left and fucking right. But it's the same thing with every town when they say there have been 10,000 mass shootings just this year alone. Really? Then why didn't we hear about them? Why don't we only hear about the ones that are heavily publicized and actually have some carnage about it? Why don't we hear about all these other 10,000? Is it maybe because that'll wreck your fucking narrative? Yeah, if there was an actual, especially with the reaction that we got from the news, if there was an actual epidemic of white on Asian hate crime, we would be hearing about it. But, and I didn't even get a chance to talk about the black on Asian crime, the big one that hit the news this past week out of New York, where the guy was out on parole from killing his mom. I thought about putting that one in the notes, but I couldn't find a place to fit that one in. But, yeah, there's a big epidemic going the other direction. Not that that's right either, but if you really want to do the Stop Asian Hate, then you need to start paying attention to that one. Spartan says they're sick and evil. It should be a crime to distort the truth that far. Yeah. Giles Corey says the strange thing is that's bad that we have mass shootings and that states are not allowed to execute the convicted perpetrators. Yeah, that's true as well. It's like my boy Stephen Ignoramus has popped in here and hosting the stream, so maybe we'll get some new viewers in here as well. Thank you for the host. Giles says, my spelling is getting worse. Well, I can still understand what you're saying, so as long as I can still understand what you're saying, it can get as bad as you want. And I've had some friends that have had some pretty bad spelling as well. Stephen Ignoramus says, white Christians are good drivers. Oh, Stephen. Giles says, in other words, a Moorish sovereign says that. Spartan says, even if he's a black Trump supporter, they would say white supremacy ideology follower. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's the big thing about this as well. And I always say, switch the parties. Switch the parties. Switch the parties, switch the races, switch the genders. You do a lot of switching. If you're outraged about one person doing something, change the color of his skin, change his gender, change his political party, change his religion, and see if you still feel the same way. That's how I've always tried to conduct myself when I look at some of these cases. It's helped me be objective when I'm coming and trying to do this as well. And I know that people will say, well, you're not being objective about Matt Gaetz, which we'll talk about a little bit later, because he's a Republican and you're an evil fucking Trump guy. Well, no, I voted for Trump kicking and screaming. I did it. But I was not happy about it. I can tell you that for absolute certain. I was not happy about it. So, these people refuse to do that. It is a matter of ideology for these guys. But that's what we're going to, and that is what you're going to see forever and ever. Amen from all this stuff. Now, we got to talk a bit about the Chauvin trial, because there was a lot of stuff that went along with that, and it has been a shit show. There has been almost zero substance that comes out of this, which is part of the reason that the news isn't covering a whole lot of what's going on with this. There's a big part of the reason that the news isn't, I mean, people are getting their little recycled news clips off of this, but as far as substance goes for this, and I have looked through hours of video for this stuff, and there is no substance that's coming back out of this. All we're seeing is a bunch of emotional protests to get out there to try and get people, to try and trick a jury into coming out and being careful and saying, how could they kill this poor man? How could he do it? I don't care about the evidence, just put this man in jail. That's what they're trying to get up off of this. And we see a lot of stuff going with this as well. I know, looks like when they started out the trial, when they were doing opening arguments, according to News 15, Fox 15, and NBC 15 out of Minneapolis, the trial began with the video. And it wasn't the famous 8-minute and 48-second video that we saw. This one actually went back a little bit further with the video of Chauvin's last few minutes of life as Chauvin was kneeling on Floyd's neck it's been updated now. It wasn't 8 minutes and 48 seconds now. It's now been up to 9 minutes and 29 seconds. It looks like, yes, Chauvin was holding the knee on him. Floyd was crying out, "I can't breathe." And yes, if that's the only evidence that you're seeing for this, that's very heavily emotional. Like, I saw the original cell phone video of this, and it was emotional. My channel was age restricted because I showed it on Contemporary when it happened. He's sitting out there, "Mama, I can't breathe." And I mean, even that part of the story has been hauled into question off of this. Now, I've looked at the testimony. I've looked at a lot of the testimony off of this. There have been several people talking about this. A former MMA fighter who came out and said that he saw the blood choke, which was a sleeper move that MMA fighters use, and that Chauvin was grinding his knee off of this. An EMT who looked at this and said that she had to go run and call the police on the police because it was so evil what Chauvin was doing. Various other members of the crowd who said that they were out there, they were screaming. A gentleman on the stand who broke down. Let's watch that one, actually. A gentleman who broke down on the stand because he thought that he could do something about this. Let's have a listen. Maybe if it'll load up. There it goes.
Mr. McMahon, do you need a minute?
Oh my God. Just take your time. Let us know when you're ready.
I'll just give you a moment, Mr. McMahon. I'm not sure if there's water for you as well. Oh. If you need a break to get some water, let me know, and we can take a break. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I mean, that is some powerful moving stuff when you look at that. Looks like Steven has something that he wants us to show. Let me see if I can get that loaded in quick. I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not. But let me see if I can get that loaded up into the agenda. Because I don't do just screen share on this program. So let me see. Let me do a little bit of on-air production for this one. He's just based on some of the race stuff. So I'll show that possibly later on. On-air production, it's the best thing in the world. But that's what we can, especially we can do some of this stuff when we don't have a co-host. All right, I'll show that a little bit later off this, but we got to keep on with this Chauvin trial here because it's definitely been the kind of thing that's been something to watch, and nobody's been watching it. They've just been taking the little recycled sound bites that come off of this, and I know Crowder was talking about this too when he was talking, because I listened to Louder with Crowder for the first couple days before he got his YouTube suspension, and they were actually sitting down and watching the trial. Actually, I believe his YouTube suspension was because he got dinged for showing the trial footage, and he was taking it from CNN. So he got dinged for the trial footage off of that, and he's kicked off YouTube. But they were sitting there listening. And for the most part, throughout the entirety of the day, it's just droll, blah, testimony, legalese, arguments, people coming out and saying certain things about what happened. And for the most part, it's the same people repeating over and over and over again. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Over and over again. That's all they've been doing. It's just, I saw this, and I should have stopped it. I would have stopped it. I tried to stop it. Derek Chauvin looks so mean in his face. He looked so angry. There was nothing I could do. What should I do? And there's not been any substance. Now, with the MMA fighter that talked about this, he did bring up the fact that he thought he saw Chauvin grinding his knee into Floyd's neck through all of this. And if that can be independently corroborated, which is going to be the key off of this, that and the medical examiner's report, whichever one winds up being admissible off of this, because there are two different medical examiner's reports that are floating around about this right now. That may actually push intent, but I still don't think. What this is going to come down to is what Floyd died of. That is going to be the most important part of this situation, is what Floyd passed away from, whether it was the neck trauma, which there is a medical examiner's report that says, yes, there was trauma. There is a medical report that says that, but the other medical report says that he died from a drug overdose, and the medical examiner even came out and said that if it wasn't for Derek Chauvin kneeling on this guy's neck, then I would have just called this a guy dying at home from an overdose. Because all the signs fit off of this. It is going to depend on where we go off of this. I don't see intent. Intent is required for second and third degree murder. There does need to be intent for both of these. Second degree murder. Killing somebody while in the act of committing another felony. Well, that actually doesn't even... I'm sorry, that's third degree murder. Third degree murder. Killing somebody in the act of committing another felony. Unless you can get felony assault, which once again, given the fact that this is on the Minneapolis training manual, you can't get you can't get felony assault off that. There's no way. That charge should have never been brought back forward. That is Keith Ellison way overcharging this. Second degree murder. Crime of passion with intent to kill. I don't see that either. Yes, I've got questions about intent because of the grinding of the knee, but that's going to need independent corroboration, and I've yet to see video evidence of the fact that he was grinding his knee. Manslaughter is going to be a 50-50, but that's not going to alleviate the people of Minneapolis who are already ready to go and burn that city up to the ground. And even there, that's been one of the things that comes off of this. I got a piece from HuffPo that I wanted to talk about with that, because Van Jones got up and said that either the Minneapolis court is going to give us the verdict that we want, or the city is going to burn. So let me just read briefly from this. This is from the Huffington Post. CNN commentator Van Jones on Monday warned of a potential time bomb for the country with the trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who was pleaded not guilty to murder and manslaughter charges on the May 2020 death of George Floyd. Everyone I'm talking to is frustrated, re-triggered, re-traumatized, seeing that video, seeing the complete contempt for life, Jones told CNN's Chris Cuomo, which I don't see that. That would be the intent that we're looking for, but I don't see the intent. There is no intent for this. Jones told CNN's Chris Cuomo about the first day of Chauvin's trial, during which the full video of the then officer kneeling on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds was aired. The system is on trial here, said Jones. If this is considered legal conduct from a police officer, if you can do this in broad daylight and not go to jail, it will be perceived as open season, telling police officers from coast to coast, you can literally get away with murder in broad daylight. That is an outstanding charge against the system from Van Jones, too, because it's not there. There is no intent for this case from everything that's been presented in front of me right now. Yes, it sucks. And yes, they actually could have dinged Chauvin on a lot of other charges. There were lower charges, and he probably would have spent just a few days in county, or maybe even had a fine off of this, lost his job, lost his ability to get another job. But when you overcharge, somebody's going to walk away from this. And this is a massively overcharged case. But Van Jones is coming right out off CNN. Let's have a listen to it.
What did you take from
No, never mind.
today?
That's a 7-minute clip. I don't want to have a listen to that one, and this isn't contemporary. So, but yeah, it's just this is one of those things where yes, there's an outcome that the media and the people want, and if they don't get it, they're going to throw a temper tantrum, and the country's going to suffer. The country is going to suffer. Now, there are a couple of other things that I do want to point out with this. A couple other things that talk about this. One of the an ex-cop rather looked at this and said that Floyd was big and he was probably on something, and that really that sets the stage for needing to restrain him in the most effective way possible. I mean, I see what the guy looked like standing up. He was a big boy. He was huge. And he was drugged up. So, and people are sitting out here begging, Chauvin, get off him, get off him. Now, what happens when you get off him like that? You don't know what he's on. We didn't know what he was on until after the toxicology report came up. You don't know what he's on. If he's on some sort of major upper, some methamphetamine, and as soon as he gets the wind of life back up, he comes up and starts windmilling his arms and takes one of these bystanders' heads off. You don't know what's happening with that. You don't know. So yes, I understand the need to keep him restrained. But one of the interesting things of this was... Do I have it here? I don't have it up here. Did I not bring it into the document? I might not have brought it into the document. I know the trial is kind of moving into the drug use side of this, and that's because, yeah, I don't have it up on here yet. Let me bring that up. One of the people who was supposed to be a key witness for this entire thing has decided that he was going to plead the fifth and he's not going to testify because he believes that testifying at this point would implicate him in other crimes that he would possibly go to prison for, including dealing. So I want to just read this here quick from Fox News. A key witness who was with George Floyd on the day he died has informed the court that he will invoke the Fifth Amendment if asked to testify in Chauvin's murder trial. The Hennepin County Public Defender's Office filed a notice on Wednesday on behalf
We are learning
of
new details tonight about the...
Go away, nobody likes you. On behalf of Maurice Lester Hall, 42, who was in the car with Floyd when the police approached him for allegedly using a fake $20 bill at Cup Foods in Minneapolis. Mr. Maurice Lester Hall, through undersigned counsel, hereby provides notice to all parties in this matter that if called to testify, he will invoke the Fifth Amendment privileges against self-incrimination. He said, said in notice filed by the Assistant Public Defender, Adrienne Cousins. Therefore, counsel for Mr. Hall, respectively, moves this court to quash the subpoena and release Mr. Hall from any obligations therein. Authorities previously said Hall was a key witness in the state's investigation into the 4 officers who apprehended Floyd. He was seen in body camera footage sitting in the back of the car with Floyd, his longtime friend, as another occupant, Chauvin Hill, sat in the back seat. Prosecutors and defense attorney Eric Nelson also listed Hall as potential witness in the trial of Chauvin, a former Minneapolis police officer, reports said. Hall told the New York Times last June that Floyd didn't resist arrest and instead attempted to defuse the situation. Well, and that does come to a point of contention, and as of right now, I don't believe the full body cam footage has been viewed. If you haven't seen the full body cam footage, I do recommend going over to Daily Mail and going and checking it out. I have seen it. They were the only news outlet that was able to get a copy of that, and it was quickly squashed right away as being some sort of propaganda, but it was the full footage from the beginning of engaging a Floyd on to the end of that where he cried out his last words and crumpled onto the pavement. And it is intense to watch. It is absolutely very intense to watch. But having seen the entire thing, I still don't see the intent. I see a very large man who was panicked, claustrophobic, panicked on something, with a crowd of onlookers on him, and a police officer doing what his training manual told him. Do we need to go back and adjust the training manual, the police practices? Oh, fuck yes. And, of course, relax some of these crimes so that the police don't have to go out and enforce them so harshly. But at the end of this, with all of this, I look at this trial and I don't see intent. I see an overcharged case that the guy's going to walk on, and then we are going to definitely have to deal with what happens after that. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's get this one back over here so I can look into the camera while I'm talking to you guys. Spartan says Floyd and the guy who killed his mom should have never been out of prison in the first place. Yeah, no, they shouldn't have. I mean, when we're talking about, going out and smoking a joint, that's one thing. You shouldn't be in prison for that kind of stuff. A $20 bill, a counterfeit $20 bill, that's stealing somebody's stuff. That is my measure for what the law should be too. Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. And using a counterfeit $20 bill is taking somebody's stuff because you're basically exchanging something of almost worthless value for something of value. You're stealing at that point. But that should be a fine and restitution, not a prison-worthy offense. But pointing a gun into a pregnant woman's belly while she's pregnant and robbing her at gunpoint, that's a victim crime. That's something you should go to prison for. And killing your own fucking mother? Yes. You should absolutely go to prison for that. Let's see what Ignoramus had to say about that too, as long as we're in here doing this. As long as I can get away with it without Elaine over here. So this is what he wanted. This is a suspect search that was put out on Fox 8. Suspect search. Steve Stevens, 6'1", 233 pounds, bald with full beard, wearing dark blue and gray or black striped polo shirt, driving a white Ford Fusion, considered armed and dangerous, and the big descriptor of that, dark white skin. It's a white boy. Thank you, Stephen. Spartan says the left is destroying this country by letting serious criminals out. Well, yeah. Once again, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. But there are people out there who are hurting people and taking their stuff. Chauvin looks angry because of the stress of being himself. Yeah. Spartan says, but there was a police training manual in his police department to put the knee on the neck. Yes. Red Bet says, is this live? This is live, indeed. Spartan says, even in handcuffs, you can kick or headbutt you or bite you. Quest Fanning says, Nacho Supreme, the drug dealer. Yeah, I like that. Giles Corey would said a fake $20 bill would send Floyd to federal prison. Yeah, it probably would at that point because he's got such a hard rap sheet off of this. And, I mean, who knows what else off of that. On any other normal circumstance, then that should be a fine and restitution. You bought something with a counterfeit $20 bill, paid the state $100 for stealing from someone else, and pay the dude $20 for the stuff that you bought. That's what that should be. Spartan says, please give me the dark white paint, Mr. Home Depot. Quest Banning says, I was all for bail reform until it became its own caricature. Yeah, that's the part of it too, is it should be reformed. It definitely should, because there are some outrageous amounts of bail out there for people who are going in. Somebody who came in and broke a window somewhere are being held on massive amounts of bail for no reason. But yeah, you should have some sort of deposit with, if you're going to be sitting in front of the state to answer for crimes that you've committed against the state, which once again, let's limit that to don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, then you should have at least some little incentive to come back. Otherwise, I mean, hey, you're out on signature. Okay, bye. Fuck you, I ain't coming back. Would you go back? Would you go back if there was no incentive to get you there? Or if you had like $100 sitting up on the table, where you got to come back and you'll get those 300 or those $100 back, but you got $100. I mean, both times that I had to deal with the law, and there's only been two, thankfully, but both times that I had to deal with the law, it was $300 was bail. And I got all $300 back. I mean, they didn't even take anything back up off the top. But $300, that was what bail was. I went in, I dealt with the courts. I got acquitted on both, thankfully. I got my $300 back both times, and I went on with my fucking day. That was it. But yeah, these 10, 50, unless you are like a mass serial murderer, and at that point, if you have got to put $50,000 up in order for them to make sure that you come back, they shouldn't be letting you out in the first place. And that fucking ridiculous $2 million bail that they have on Rittenhouse, on top of that, for a person who tried to turn himself in. Rittenhouse should have bail, but it shouldn't be $2 million. He has clearly pointed out and demonstrated that he wants to cooperate with the system. As much as the system is trying to fuck him right now, he has very, very, very clearly demonstrated that he wants to cooperate with it and get it behind him. Why does he need $2 billion hanging out over his head of Mike Lindell's money? I don't understand what the reasoning is behind that. Well, I do. It's political. It's something they can come up over the news. We are running up on time here, as we always are. Because I went on kind of a rant with the Chauvin thing. Let's talk about Matt Gaetz. So let me get some of this up here. So Matt Gaetz got into the news this week, and we'll circle back for the rest of the chat. Without Elaine with a heart out, I can actually maybe stick around with you guys for a little bit longer. But do keep in mind that we do want to go and watch Filling the Gap too after all this, and I want to get some dinner at some point yet tonight too. So we won't be here hugely late, but we can stay a little bit later here and catch up with live chat off of this. So Matt Gaetz got into the news this week because it came out that he was possibly traveling around with a 17-year-old while he was flying around the country, which raises all kinds of red flags if you are just walking around the country with a 17-year-old. You probably don't need to be doing that. That's illegal. But Gaetz fired back almost immediately with this to say that he was on... They were trying to extort him out of money, campaign funds, and influence. And that was the reason that he was under investigation. He didn't actually travel around with a 17-year-old. They have not been able to produce a witness yet at this point, so I see nothing off of this, but I've got a lot of questions about this. Now, it has officially come out that the FBI has had Gaetz' father wearing a wire while having meetings with the DOJ to try and trip them up into admitting the fact that they are indeed trying to extort the guy. And once again, I want to come back out and flip the parties. And one of the big things that comes off of this, and I want to remind everybody and point this out, the fact that you do need to flip the parties. And that brings us back to our old friend Katie Hill. Now, Katie Hill is, you remember, was the woman who resigned from Congress, and the news media told you that she resigned because her estranged husband leaked nudie pictures of her brushing somebody's hair while she was naked. But what most of the media has forgotten at this point was the fact that Katie Hill was also having sex with numerous members of her staff, which is staunchly against House rules. But they didn't talk about that. Weirdly enough, when the news was reporting on all this, all we saw was the pictures of Katie Hill naked, brushing somebody's hair. And of course, the other allegation of she was in the throuple with her husband and some other woman, and they were actually having a full-on relationship. It wasn't just a sexual thing. It's bullshit. Katie Hill was kicked out of Congress because she got caught stooping her staff. And Nancy Pelosi went up and said, "You're either going to resign or I'm going to make your life a living hell." But that seems to be the comparison that's coming up off of this. And like I said, switch the sides. And I go back to that. And I mean, I would hear, if Gaetz was a Democrat, I would hear the same thing out. I would probably be a little bit more critical of him because of some of the other things that have happened on that side. But I would at least hear him out, especially if it came out that somebody was wearing a wire trying to trip up the DOJ. But the other problem that I have with this story is the procedure that goes with it. Now, as far as Gates goes, it does seem, and there's, of course, been uncorroborated witnesses that have come out and said that he was a creepy fuck. He went out all the time, showed out naked pictures of girls that he apparently nailed, bragged about his conquests, all that kind of stuff. Dude, have a little bit of class. If that's true, be classy. I can't pretend that I haven't done a little bit of that myself, but I'm not coming out sharing the pictures. If somebody sends you a naked picture, you should never be sending that out anyway, sharing that out with anybody, because that's something personal. That's some weird fucking shit. But even that can't be verified or anything at this point. And that's just character defamation, because they want you to believe that he was running around with a 17-year-old. The problem that I have with this story is procedure. Now, from everything that I've read about this story, it appears that the DOJ took this case immediately. This didn't go to any sort of local police department. It didn't go to the FBI first for any sort of investigation. Bill Barr just got up and started the investigation, which is strongly outside of procedure, especially with a minor involved in state lines. In a situation like this, under any normal procedure, even if somebody went straight to the FBI and says, "Hi, my name is redacted. I was 17 years old when I was flying around with Matt Gaetz, and he was stripping me on the side." Even under that situation, the proper procedure for the DOJ would be to kick that back down to the Federal Bureau of Investigation to go out and investigate this and find the evidence that they could to try and nail this guy to the wall. The fact that the DOJ is taking this exclusively, in fact the FBI is coming out to try and trip them up and call this a shady operation, tells me that there's something else going on here, and it's not just about the fact that Matt Gaetz was out stripping a 17-year-old, if that even happened at this point. The local police department and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children would have been involved long before the DOJ ever got involved with some of this. The DOJ are attorneys. They're not an investigative body. They're the prosecutor in the case. So all of this stinks to high heavens, and I look at this and it's not necessarily what Matt Gaetz says. Now, I've said before that if there is a full investigation of this and it comes out that Gaetz carried a minor across state lines on an airplane, then nail that fucker to the wall, because he has no business being in Congress. He has no business being out there. I froze on this. Are we back? We're buffering. We're buffering. I'm moving on my screen, but I'm not moving over on the other side. All right, we're moving again. We're moving. We're back up. Big Hashish 710 says he'll tread on me. Well, I wouldn't recommend that if I was you. Do what you want, but you're not going to like the results. But anyway, going back to the Matt Gaetz thing, if it comes down to the point that yes, he was doing this, then absolutely nail him to the cross. Because at 38, which he probably would be a little bit younger at the time, but still, in his 30s, if he's chasing around a 17-year-old, there's something else wrong with the dude. If it comes out that he was actually doing this, and make an example out of him. So the other old men in Congress stop fucking doing it too, because he's not the only one that does that, I guarantee you. You've got people in power with money and major corporate kickbacks. There's more of this shit going on. So make an example out of him if you can prove that he does it. No mercy. Throw the book at him. Especially as a congressman, he should fucking know better. But I need to see more evidence before I can condemn this guy. I absolutely do. Because there's everything about this is just wrong. It's horrible. There is so much about this that isn't proper and procedural. So that's what we have on Gates. Let's talk a bit about the border. And actually, I'm gonna bring AOC's first video up here, and I'm gonna get it now. Yeah, let's talk a bit about the border here for a second, because there are a couple things that went on with this week. Actually, I don't have the articles up for the border. I'm going to skip the border. Let's talk about the infrastructure plan. See what you guys saying here. Quest Fanning says, remember Charlie Murphy on Chappelle's show? Rick James calling him and his brother Darkness. The darkness! The darkness is spreading! And they're on my YouTube channel. Says Kim Gardner is plain evil. I guess I don't know what the reference is to that, but Gates was supportive of Hill, remember? No, actually, I don't know about that. But, I mean, if he was, good on him. Despite party differences. Quest Fanning says, I'm old-fashioned. I like in-person naked. Yeah, and plus, with the pictures and everything, it's too easy to get in trouble with the Me Too thing. So, it's just best not to get that in the first place. You know, one bad thing happens or somebody hacks your phone and all of a sudden, it's sexual harassment and he leaked those pictures. Put him in prison forever and Me Too him and don't give him a trial. Yeah, it's just best to keep that stuff off here. All right, let's talk about the infrastructure plan, because there's a bunch of stuff going on with that. And I know I can't do it justice in the little bit of time that we have left here, but we're going to try. So Biden has come out and unveiled a massive $2.25 trillion infrastructure plan to go out and try to bring jobs back to the country. Now, this is actually not surprising, given the fact that Biden is a Democrat. And I've expressed this even before he won the election. Honk, wink, wink. I expressed that this was going to be coming because that's what Democrats do. I mean, this is New Deal. Well, especially this one. This is massive. But this is New Deal on steroids, what we're seeing from this one. This is not necessarily just going out to try and spend a bunch of money on bridges and roads that we might not need yet, but we might need in the future. Go away, Fox Business, and your autoplay. Nobody fucking likes you. Go away. This isn't just a few roads to nowhere that we don't necessarily need. This is the numbers have varied. Sometimes it's 1.9 trillion, sometimes it's 2.25 trillion. Fox Business is calling it 2.5 trillion. But this is just a massive spending package for Democrats off of this, and it does include a lot of pro-union legislation. Now, I've started to read through this, and of course, this is a massive plan, so you're talking hundreds and thousands of pages of this. This isn't like the executive order that we read this morning. That was one page and one page only, or 2 pages. I'll be accurate, it was 2 pages. But this isn't like that executive order that we read in the morning. This is massive. And there are huge aspects. This is like the budget once again, or not the budget, but the relief package that we just passed through that I read cover to cover and hated myself for. But this isn't just infrastructure off of this. In fact, according to even the text that I've read, not even half of this bill is going to infrastructure. Yes, there's a significant amount, and they're going to be in and giving grants to states to get back to local area people. So once your job disappears, you can go get your CDL and drive a dump truck to go and build the road that maybe you'll be driving your over-the-road truck on later on down the line. But because this is a budgetary bill, because this is the kind of bill where we're going to start to see spending. That's what it is. They're going to have the plan to get the taxes out there. They're going to have the plan to get the money appropriated for everything off of this. They've got the plan for this, and they're going to squeak this through on their second budget reconciliation of the year, which this will be the last one they can do. But they're also going to try and get the rest of their wish list in with this as well. Fox Business, and that's the reason that I have this up and letting them autoplay to do it. Biden's $2.5 trillion infrastructure plan includes pro-union legislation, which this is a big one as well because they're going to try and pass it through budget reconciliation, and they're going to try and get around the filibuster by doing so. So they're going to try and jam as much shit in there as they can and hope that nobody reads it and sees it. President Biden's $2.5 trillion infrastructure plan includes the House-passed Protecting the Right to Organize Act, which awaits a Senate vote. The bill would allow the National Labor Relations Board to fine employers who violate workers' rights to ease restrictions against worker strikes, follow California's new independent contractor law, and erode right-to-work laws in 27 states that have been in place since the 1950s. President Biden is calling on Congress to update the social contract that provides the workers with a fair shot to get ahead, overcome racial and other inequalities that have been barriers for too many Americans, expand the middle class, and strengthen the communities, a White House fact sheet states. He is calling on Congress to ensure all workers have a free and fair choice to join a union by passing the PRO Act and guarantee a union and bargaining right to service workers. So what this includes, first off, it makes right-to-work illegal, which is completely unconstitutional, goes against the 10th Amendment, on top of all the other problems that are with that, but it's completely unconstitutional on top of this. What they're also trying to do is they're basically trying to kill the freelance sector as well. Now, I do know a lot of people who very much appreciate the fact that they can go out and, even in these trying times, Brady Leonard, a friend of the show, for a while, and I don't know if he's still doing it. I don't know if he's gone back to a regular job at this point, but I know being a musician, being a stage touring musician, he chose to prop himself up on Uber, of all things, to try and make sure that he kept his house, kept his property, and kept his wife fed. He Ubered around for everything for a long time, and he was an independent contractor. He wasn't an employee of Uber. He was just a guy who got out in his car, turned his phone on, and said, okay, I'm going to go collect some fares right now. And some of these people can actually make a decent living off it. I wouldn't be able to, because the cost of gas in my truck, especially at $2.75 a fucking gallon, would far outweigh any sort of benefits that came along with me going out and Ubering. If I could use it to dedicate more time to Freedom Scoop, and it would be effective, I would do it, but with that pickup truck sitting outside, there'd be no way. I would not be able to make any money off of it. But these people are able to keep more of their profits, keep themselves working, keep themselves on a regular schedule because they're independent contractors. They take care of their own health care. Their employer doesn't have to do so. And they can work when they want to work. They don't have to worry about being rigid, keeping vehicles in X amount of maintenance, business expenses that go along with that. They just go out, they turn their phone on, then they go. And this PRO Act would kill that. And it's the same thing with DoorDash, with your Grubhub, Eat Street, which is what we have here. They're looking at killing this. And that's one of the big ones, because that's a job killer. That absolutely is a job killer. How you get this past the millennial generation that voted for your wrinkled fucking ass is also absolutely beyond me. But that's one of the things that they're trying to kick into this. Now, one of the other sides of this, and that's, I didn't get the image up in here, and I should have, but one of the other big ones that came off of this is a fairly substantial grant for Amtrak. Let me get this article up here. ABC 7 writes, Biden infrastructure plan could bring Amtrak service to more cities. So Amtrak is supposedly getting a fairly substantial grant off of this particular stimulus to add various cities to this. They're calling infrastructure plan $2.2 trillion on this one. According to this, they don't give the grant amount for Amtrak. That's what I was looking for in this article, which I thought they did, but I guess they did not. But it looks like they, by 2035, would be expanding their routes to 30 new routes, adding more trips on 20 existing routes, and extending service to 160 new communities. But Kevin Glass points out, as he's talking about this one here, Chicago to New Orleans, a 2.5-hour flight, takes 19 hours on Amtrak. retweeting Kevin Robillard's tweet, the new Amtrak map that just dropped. So, and that's one thing to keep in mind with this as well. Now, as of right now, commercial flights are bargain bottom because of the commie coup, but you're at a horse apiece with that. If you're going to go up on the train, or if you're going to go on the plane, either way, you're going to be in the same metal, well, not the same metal cylinder, but the same kind of metal cylinder with recirculated air in close contact with hundreds of other people in a disease that you have to be tested and know you have. So, these people are super spreaders. And you can get on a plane for probably about $190 and get there in 2.5 hours. Spend the other 16.5 hours on your vacation, going to beaches, going to festivals and whatnot, going to visit with your family. Or for just a little bit less, you can spend 19 hours on a train making the same trip. Now, rail is a good thing, and I don't begrudge people who want to go by rail, but especially for long distance, it's not a feasible way. Like, if you're going to go Amtrak from Chicago to Milwaukee because you live in Chicago and you don't have a car, that's one thing. If you rely on public transport to go everywhere, that's a completely different thing. That's a reasonable route to go there. There's no real reason to have a flight to go from Chicago to Milwaukee. It's 3 hours driving. I don't even think it's that. It's like 2 hours driving from Chicago to Milwaukee, from downtown to downtown. And you get on the Amtrak and it takes like 3 hours. You're in a decent amount of time. It's cost effective. But yeah, if you're going from like Chicago to Los Angeles, you're going to spend your entire vacation just on the train. Because it's like a week from Chicago to Los Angeles. I know. My aunt took that trip. Because she was afraid of flying. I mean, yeah, there's a market for that too, because there are people that are out there that are afraid of flying. But yeah, for the most part, for most people out there, this is not going to be something they're going to use. But we'll be paying attention to more of this and the battle that comes over this particular showdown here and see what happens with that. And yay. As I said before when we were talking about what could happen under Biden, if you don't have a CDL right now, I would recommend getting one. Don't jump in a truck and start going over the road right away, but spend the whatever it is in your state to go get the CDL because there might be a chance that they might want you out there doing that job. And that there are some cases that might be the only job that's available for you. And it's better to be prepared than having to go take the classes when you're ready to go. All right. Let's see. What else do I want to go? I want to talk a little bit about this Georgia thing for just a second. Then I think we're going to be just about up on time off of this because that's been the other thing that goes on in the news. Let me get a couple of things cleared out here. We'll do some live chat while I'm opening up some other tabs for you guys. You know, this goes way easier with Elaine here. All right, let's see what you guys are doing. Giles Corey is here. He says, until we limit corporate citizenships, involvement in government, nothing will change. Yeah, that's going to be one of the things that goes along with that as well is, you know, and I agree that your money is speech. I really do. And corporations are made up of people, but it does get a little rough when the corporations, especially like your Amazon, which got massively richer, and Walmart too, which got massively richer over the span of the commie fucking coup. They're the ones that are pulling the strings off all this stuff. Do you really think that Beijing Biden is going to go out and tax the shit out of Bezos, who owns the Washington Post that can run massive smear pieces against him? Do you think he's going to sign on to any bill that doesn't have a workaround to save his friend Jeff Bezos, who's going to write all kinds of fluff pieces for him in the Washington Post where democracy goes to die in darkness? No, he's not going to do that. All right, let's see. Quest Fanning says, the age of pork is redoubled. Giles Corey says, in other words, join a union or starve. Yeah, that's getting to the point there, because that was their big pet project too when they started talking about all this stuff. Is we want every job to be union, we want everybody to be in a union, we want we don't want jobs to exist that aren't union, and we want to force all the ones out there that aren't there, and we want to have laws in place that says that every job has to be unionized, because it's for the people and not for the fact that the unions are giving massive kickbacks to these Democrat organizations. It's for the people. Some dude on Xbox says, hi. Do you know if anyone has tested to see if you kneel on the neck, if it causes them not to breathe? Trying to find results. Actually, Crowder did a test of it, because that is an acceptable hold. It's a manual approved hold for that sort of situation. You have to do it right, obviously. And it looks like the particular hold was executed properly. So if it's executed properly, then yeah, that's the situation we find ourselves in. Is we have to see what the medical examiner's report says, and to see if there was asphyxiation by crushed arteries, crushed blood vessels, or crushed trachea, or if it was in fact the massive cocktail of drugs that were in George Floyd's system. And Giles Corey says, yeah, they kneel on your collarbone area usually. Yep, because it's a hold. It's an immobilizing hold. It's not necessarily out there to try and hurt or kill somebody. It's just trying to keep them immobilized long enough that the paramedics can get there. Spartan says, rail is great for transporting goods, not so great for people if it is not perfectly connected. Yun Verzm says, hey, I'm Turkish. I'm writing from Translate. You translate too. I don't understand what you say, man. Well, I don't understand what you're saying. Good night. Well, I'm sorry. I don't speak Turkish, so I can't help you. You came into an English-speaking chat wondering what it was that I was saying, and I can't translate that for you because I don't know your language. I can barely speak Spanish, dude. Giles Corey says the stress of the event causing an even higher heart rate along with the drugs affect an inability to move probably stopped his heart. In other words, he wasn't able to dance the effects of the drugs out of his system, which is an interesting way to put that as well. So I don't know. I don't know where this is going to land. All right. We got to talk just a bit about this budgetary thing because there were a couple things that went along with this. And a couple of videos to go along with this too. So the first thing that I want to point out is where people are still trying to go on this racial thing to talk about the driver's license. So Mark E. Elias tweeted this out, and he says, the new Georgia law will require the voters to submit ID to vote by mail. If they use the driver's license, they need to provide the number. One of two numbers below is correct. If they put the other, it will be rejected. Are you sure you would pick the right one? And if you focus in on the screen here, you'll see that the line 4D on the driver's license says DL number. And line 5 says DD. I don't know, if it was me and I was filling out a form for that, I would put the one, when it says driver's license number, I would go with the line that says DL number. Now, I understand that I've worked in transport for almost my entire career. So I actually know what these numbers are. I know what my driver's license number is from memory. I know how many digits are in my driver's license number. And I can look easily at my ID and see where my driver's license number is. It's up on the top. I don't know what this number is, but there are several other states that have the same number in it. This DD number, which I think has to do with Real ID, but I'm not sure. But no, your driver's license number issued by the state is up on the top where it says driver's license number. Not only that, in Georgia, the driver's license number is 9 digits. And in most of the forms like this, they will idiot-proof these forms by putting 9 individually marked boxes for you to put your 9 digits in. And honestly, and I know this isn't supposed to be the freedom-minded way that I'm supposed to do this, but I'm sorry. If you can't figure out what your own driver's license number is by looking at your ID, or your own ID number if you don't have a driver's license, if you just have a state-issued ID, then you probably shouldn't be voting. You maybe shouldn't be the one that's up there making these decisions. Maybe you ought to sit this one out. At that point, honestly, yeah, no, you shouldn't be. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I don't think that I'm wrong on that one. I think that that should be the line. Basic reading comprehension and the knowledge of government documents should be the first thing that you should know when it comes time to decide whether or not you should be voting. That's the way I see this. But the saga continues, and we still look at some of the things that are going on. So Delta backpedaled this week. If you'll remember, we were talking last week about the fact that Delta was being boycotted over the fact that they came out in support of Georgia's law. Well, they're not in support of this anymore, and Delta's CEO called on the new Georgia vote restrictions unacceptable. Ed Bastian condemned Georgia's new election law as unacceptable in a memo circulated to staff on Wednesday, claiming the entire rationale for this bill was based on a lie about widespread voter fraud in 2020. Which is funny, because he had no problem with the bill last week, until people came out and started saying, we're not going to fly in your airplane unless you boycott this bill. We're going to boycott. And Coca-Cola actually got in on this too. NBC comes out and points out the other side of that because the Coca-Cola CEO got in it. Delta CEO Ed Bastian said in a memo that the law is unacceptable and does not match Delta's values. CEO James Quincy of Coca-Cola says, let me be crystal clear and unequivocal. This legislation is unacceptable. So both of them are coming off of this, which at that point, the Georgia State the State House, rather did fight back with that because they looked into this and said, you know what? If you don't like what we just did in our state to secure our elections, then maybe you don't need this big, massive tax break. And other industries started to get on board with this as well. Major League Baseball decided the All-Star Game and the MLB Draft this year were both set to be held in Atlanta at the Brave Stadium. And then it turned out that they wanted to pull off of this, once again trying to hurt the state because the state came out and decided they needed to have this law, which was racist and horrifying. And unfortunately, because we're up on the clock at this point, I'm not going to be able to discuss some of what's in the law, but hopefully next week when Elaine is back, we'll sit back and discuss some of the contents of this. But they're calling these laws draconian, and the voter ID is racist, and the normal talking points that you hear from these particular programs. Unfortunately, the community that was surrounding the Brave Stadium was counting on this to come in here. According to the Daily Wire, the Georgia county that voted for Biden to lose $100+ million over the MLB relocating the game after Biden's remarks, which I didn't hear Biden's remarks, but we can actually sit down and listen to Jen's remarks on this. Let's have a listen to that one. Give me a sec, that reloaded. Which means it shrunk down. What a bitch. Is that rude? Or was she rude? I don't know. But with that, looks like the MLB will be taking out. It looks like they will possibly be going to Minnesota for the All-Star Game now, which would actually be, I mean, it'd be a cool thing for Hank Aaron and the history behind that. and then the draft as well. But yeah, it's just they're hurting their own communities. And Cobb County was a heavily Democratic county in the last election where this was coming out of. They sort of brought millions of dollars back to this county in small businesses, which are struggling to open back up after the commie coup. They really needed this, and now it's being taken away from them because Biden was talking about how bad this was. The PGA is staying in, though. We'll read briefly from the New York Post, and then we're going to head on out of here for the night. But the New York Post, PGA Tour keeping 2021 Tour Championship in Georgia after MLB yanks the All-Star Game. Major League Baseball has pulled its All-Star Game from Atlanta, but the PGA Tour says it will not move its Tour Championship later this year from Georgia based on the state's new voting law. With the Masters slated to be played this week in Augusta, the PGA Tour announced the Tour Championship. The season's FedEx Cup playoff event will be held at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta in the first week of September due to financial commitments to local businesses, to charities. And this is the way to do this. And this actually restores a little bit of my faith in humanity because they are willing to come back out and do this. You committed to this community before you knew what was going on with the entire state. These businesses plan to have you here. It was the same thing. I actually had the same gripe with the DNC when they decided to have an all-virtual event because all of Milwaukee was going through additional security checks, was going through additional ordering, was going through additional buffing up of its staff, hiring new people. For this temporary one-time event where Democrats from all across the country were going to come in and spend millions of dollars, maybe tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in the city of Milwaukee and the downtown area, which desperately needs it. Especially, once again, after the coup. That little area that they were going to be in desperately needed that money coming in. And they just said, okay, it's going to be virtual. You can go back and watch, but we're not going to have this at the convention center anymore. I believe they were going to have it at the Target Center. We're not going to have it at Buck Stadium anymore, so sorry, businesses. That was a lot of money that these people put out. And it was the same thing with the people prepping for the MLB All-Star Game. They put a bunch of money out to make sure that they were prepped. They had proper staff, proper food levels. How much food is going to go to waste? Because people were starting to order, ready to go for the I don't know when the All-Star Game is. So that might have been way, way down the line, and they probably haven't ordered yet. But, I mean, how many loans were taken out? How much food was going to waste? How many people thought they were getting a great job in the service industry that no longer have a job to go back to because they just pulled out of this? But the PGA looked at this and said, you know what? We made the commitment. We made the commitment that was going to bring people money. We made the commitment to the local businesses. We're going to stick around. We will deal with Georgia afterwards, but we made the promise. We signed the contract, and we're going to stay through there. So good on them and good on the communities that the PGA actually services. And I hope that they thrive. And I hope that Georgia's economy comes back out of this. I have not read all the way through the Georgia election bill yet. So I don't know whether it's good or bad. From the clips that I've seen of it, it looks like it's actually pretty good. It expands voting rights. It expands voting access. It expands mail-in voting. It just gives them that ID, which that seems to be the poison pill for every Democrat who would otherwise support every other aspect of this bill. But they got to have that voter ID gone, man, because they got to have it gone. It's got to be gone for mail-in voting and for every voting. That's the poison pill for it, and that's part of the reason everyone's protesting. And of course, we're going to look at they're standing in long lines. Municipalities are the ones that set the polling places. They're the ones that control the lines. If they want shorter lines, open up more polling places. But that's what we're seeing up out of Georgia for the week here. And hopefully, with Elaine back here next week, we'll be able to go into a little bit more depth in this. I know that we were, once again, up against the clock, so we're running a little bit behind off this, and I had to kind of rush that segment, but we're out of time. That's it for the day. So, I think we're going to head on out of here for the day. I don't have surprise stupidity because I bumped it back up to the lightning round, and we're done. All right, let's see what you guys are saying, and then we'll head on out of here. I know, I've been kind of keeping up, so this will be a short segment. Usually we're bumming through an hour's worth of live chat at this point in the show, but, I kind of used that as a crutch while I was going through and changing up my article. So, let's see. Giles Corey says, I think I read that one already, the stress of the event causing an even higher heart rate. along with the drugs, effect and inability to move probably stopped his heart. In other words, he wasn't able to dance the effects of the drugs out of his system. Spartan says DLive is like 50% Turkish channels. Yeah, it's a Turkish gaming network is what it is. But it was really good for free speech because, people weren't paying attention to it. And then they got woke and headed on out of there. Ben Wild says he's late again, but I don't take attendance. So you're cool. Listen back on the replay when it processes, and you'll catch everything. McConnell Smuggles Coke is here. I was just watching my favorite Marvel movie, and I realized I like Star Wars better. Seawall says, had half-track noises. Yeah, he's popping in here at the end. 80s Kid says, you remind me of Styx. Well, thank you. I actually saw you subscribed after you must be coming over from Styx's channel because I saw you subscribed right after I sent out the super chat inviting him to come on to the live stream, which, yes, Styx said that he would come on to the 24-hour stream that's coming up here. So definitely looking forward to that. Hope you guys can come in and join in for that. I try not to be like other people, so I don't know how to take that, but I mean, he's also the OG as well. So I do take a little bit of pride in the fact that I remind you of him, but I am trying to be my own guy. So I'm a little bit mixed on that one, but thanks for coming in and hanging out. Absolutely. We're here at 5:30 Central Time every Monday and 7:45 a.m. Central Time every weekday. So hope to see you around here a little bit more. Ben Wild says, who poops in the halls of the White House more, Major or Joe? I don't know. I'm more concerned on who's biting the staffers more, Major or Joe. But yes, the pooping... Well, you can put a diaper on Joe, so we'd never know. But Major, you can't exactly put a diaper on him, and he just kind of goes out and does his thing. 80s Kid says, get in touch with Styx. You are really good. Well, thank you once again. I've already been in touch with him. He's already confirmed. So, yeah, I think we're going to sell the wares and head on out of here. I think that's going to be it for the show. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Apologize that we didn't have my regular co-host down here. I'm pretty bummed, but yeah, like I said, there was something that came up earlier in the day, and I couldn't find a suitable co-host to go with there. As long as we're here, if you're over on DLive, make sure to get ready to scramble for some of those lemons because I'm going to hit the chest right now. Because we got monetization back and people are donating again, so... You'll see it in about 10 seconds. You'll see the prompt that says, ready to throw lemons. Go and grab your lemons and let's head on out of here. I haven't seen any other people on DLive. I know Spartan was in here earlier, but Ron had to go, so that's what we've got there. And let's head on out of here. Let's get some music playing and go. Let's get this auto-playing video back out of my corner, too. Where's my outro music? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Let's play some music and go. All right, so... Thanks, everybody, once again for coming in and hanging out. If you are just catching up now, you can catch us back on demand over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com. Both of those are linked in the description below. Go and check both of those out. Or if you'd rather take us on the go on audio. I keep saying us like Elaine is sitting over on the other side of the screen. If you would rather take us on the go on audio, make sure you go and check us out over on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. And if you're over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. Make sure you mark your calendars for April 17th from midnight to midnight Central Time. We will all be on and hanging out and doing 24 hours for suicide prevention and awareness. We've got so many great guests for this. I am so excited for this stream. You have no idea. Looking forward to seeing you guys all here. And for $2,500, I'm getting a haircut. That was the agreement that I had with Elaine. So if you guys, she thinks we can do it. And I have faith in you guys as well. So if she thinks we can do it, we can do it. So definitely come back and hang out there. And on that day, we will also be premiering the brand new Freedom Scoop Media Group website. So you can find a one-stop shop to find and support, because we'll have a financial support feature in the new edition. Great creators such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles of Brit Show. Almost all of them will be participating in the 24-hour live stream. Only The Freckles of Brit Show will be out because they both have previous engagements, including maybe Freckles' wedding. I can't ask her to give that up for my show. Absolutely not. So, we can still come and hang out without those two, though. Absolutely. Once again, hope to see you guys there. And that's going to be it for the day. Definitely looking forward to seeing you guys back here next week for more of the Red and Ed Show. Hopefully with 100% more Red on the other side of the screen. I'll see how she's doing at the end of that. But other than that, we'll be back here tomorrow morning at 7:45 a.m. for more contemporary. We'll see what happened throughout the day today, headlines and news for that. Looking forward to seeing you guys there as well. And as always, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Elaine is not here to lead them out, so don't do anything that I wouldn't do twice. Take care, everybody, and have a good night.